new reaction from the Trump administration to a clash between police and protesters in New York City Saturday over ICE deportations. Several demonstrators were arrested as they appeared to stop a potential ICE raid in the city. Trump administration border czar Tom Homan emphasizing ICE won't be deterred as House Minority Leader Jeffries railed against the administration's efforts.
Look, they're making it more difficult and less efficient. Bottom line is, ICE is out there today. ICE will be out there tomorrow. ICE will be out there every day. Protest all you want. We'll be out there today and tomorrow. We'll be out there every day until we get this job done.
They're not deporting violent felons, by and large. They're deporting families. In some cases, they're actually deporting American citizen children or separating them from their parents. And the American people have zero interest in that.
Let's bring in host of the Fast Politics podcast, Molly John Fast, and host of the In Sync with Alexi podcast, Alexi McCammon, both of whom are MS Now political analysts. Welcome, ladies. Good to see you both. So, Molly, it is the latest in a string of protests against ICE in several cities, combined with the enormity of that No Kings protest that we all covered a couple weekends back. Is resistance against this administration picking up steam, as many predicted it would in this term?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's clear. And you see, when you look at these polls from this weekend, they are really, really shockingly bad. So, again, this is not popular. We're seeing Trump world, I mean, when you see that segment you just did with Peter Baker, where you were talking about the members of Congress resigning, saying that they have, giving up because they've basically given their power to Trump and to the executive branch. And now we're seeing an executive branch that is a sort of supercharged executive branch, the kind of thing that they had talked about in Project 2025. The problem with supercharged executive branch, especially this particular executive branch, is that, you're sort of the hostage of the machinations of that executive branch. And so we're seeing a very unhappy Congress and a very unhappy electorate.
So, Lexi, while the president's strongest issues, they still are crime and immigration, he is underwater on both, according to the latest polls, in fact, by a lot. Is the sight of families, to Molly's point, openly being torn apart and people being chased from places where they're just working, is it too far for the American public?
Yeah, I mean, those images and videos certainly don't help their cause, and they really show the American people what's going on and the harmful effects of these immigration policies being carried out by Trump's administration. But then you also get folks who have family members who are being taken away, or friends of family that they've known since they were younger, getting online, getting on TikTok and sharing personal stories, for example, about the person that they knew and how unfair it feels that they've been taken away. And those personal stories travel far and wide too, and really, I think, do something to people's psyche. And really, it's just sort of a black and white issue to a lot of people when they hear the human side of what's going on, rather than hearing about it in terms of a policy or political debate.
Molly, there may be signs of the MAGA base cracking somewhat. There was that Politico poll, which finds a sizable 38% of people who voted for President last year, President Trump, they do not identify as a MAGA Republican. Has Trump lost the support of independents and moderate Republicans already? Will politically savvy Republicans start distancing themselves?
Well, I think if you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's a great example of a politically savvy Republican distancing themselves from Trump, right? She said her kids can't afford health insurance. She said Marjorie Taylor Greene does not separate herself from Donald Trump unless she sees the writing on the wall. And in fact, if you read her resignation statement, which was very long and fulsome, and then there was a video, and she really did make a point of saying, I am MAGA, this is not MAGA. And again, that is really meaningful because remember, we've had Senate Republicans terrified to vote against Trump's picks, right? We saw Senate Republicans say, well, RFK Jr. and Pete Hegseth, these people aren't qualified, but we're going to vote anyway because basically they said everything but we're terrified. So to have Marjorie Taylor Greene go out there, do this video, do this 4-page resignation letter, and say, like, Trump is more interested in the globalist interests. I mean, we can dissect what that means, but and we probably should, but it's important to realize that is cracks in MAGA. That is exactly what we were watching there.
And in fact, there's also this, Alexi, second term, low approval rating for the president by Gallup. His 36% now is just 2 points higher than Gallup's polling immediately after the January 6th Capitol riot. Are you surprised Trump's numbers are this bleak less than a year in? Will he care that this could spell disaster for Republicans in the next year? Because with losing the House or maybe tightening up the Senate, would it affect his agenda, which is largely full of executive orders?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing, Alex. It's like Donald Trump does not care about helping other Republicans get elected. He cares about them being winners. But in the past, when he has sent out to campaign with Republicans running in midterm elections, he made it all about himself and barely talked about the candidates or the elected officials running at hand. And so he doesn't care. He will sign executive orders, do what he wants. He would leave the government shut down forever and ever for all he cares. I mean, he would circumvent Congress to get whatever he wants done. And so, no, I don't think that it's surprising, though, that his approval is so low, just given how unpopular he is as a person, how unpopular his policies are. And then to the conversation you were just having with Molly, folks who were diehard MAGA are no longer willing to associate with him and that part of the Republican Party. And that goes for elected officials and popular podcasters like Candace Owens, Joe Rogan, Megyn Kelly, Theo Vaughn, these people who are openly saying, you know what, MAGA is over and I'm not even a part of it. And that is decidedly different than it was the first time around.
So, Molly, Democrats have sold the party as a big tent for all, right? Does this still hold up? Will an outspoken or defiant progressive wing tolerate or forgive moderates who may now regret a 2024 Trump vote?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to if they want to win, right? Winning is addition, not subtraction. That's what, that is the great sort of political theory of all time. So in order to create the big tent, you need to win. You're going to have to accept in some of those moderates. Now, I would say I'm not sure trying to appeal to Liz Cheney voters, as we saw in 2024, because it turns out those people are Democrats. But what we saw in Georgia is a great example in the 2025 cycle. You saw Republicans voting for these Georgia state legislature, these energy board seats, and they did it because they were angry about energy prices. There's a really good piece in the Times today about that. And again, are they Democrats? Not really, but they're angry about energy prices. And those are voters that you would like to get in a 2026 midterms. You don't have to have them forever. You just have to have them for this cycle. And if you can make a case for them, then you will. I mean, one of the things we saw with Trump was he won these Latino voters. He won some low frequency voters. Those voters are now not going to vote for him. Certainly the ICE, what we're seeing with ICE is a pretty good, example of him not keeping a promise to those voters, right? He said, I'm going to deport the people who are here who did crimes. And that's not what we're seeing. As a very small percentage. So I do think you're going to see a bigger coalition, and you have to in order to win.
Okay. As you said, it's all about the math. Molly Jong-Fast, Alexi McCammon. Ladies, thank you both so much.
The revenge president. Donald Trump's second run in the White House isn't about policy anymore. It's about payback. Every decision feels personal. The tariffs on India aren't really about oil. They're about dominance. The insults towards Colombia's president aren't about drugs. They're about humiliation. The threat to send troops into U.S. cities isn't a show of control. It's the performance of a man trying to prove he still owns fear. Trump has turned the presidency into a revenge tour, settling old scores with the world and using government like a weapon of emotion. When Trump feels cornered, he doesn't negotiate, he strikes. His politics have always run on the fuel of resentment towards critics, toward institutions, toward anyone who ever made him look weak. That's why this phase of his rule feels darker. It's powered not by ambition, but by grievance. He sees betrayal everywhere, from allies who didn't clap loud enough to judges who ruled against him. Each new target gives him a headline, and each act of retribution gives his followers the satisfaction of seeing someone punished. For them, it's justice. For him, it's survival. This week's moves fit that pattern perfectly. India gets slammed with tariffs because it didn't obey. Colombia gets insulted because it dared to answer back. The U.S. cities are threatened because some governors refused to bow. What ties them all together is not ideology, but impulse. The reflex of a man who believes politics is just another season of revenge TV. The danger is that revenge always demands escalation. Once you start punishing enemies, you have to keep finding new ones. Trump's circle grows smaller, his tone harsher, his vision narrower. Even allies begin to hesitate, unsure when the loyalty test will come for them. That's how isolation begins, not with diplomacy failing, but with trust evaporating. Trump once promised to drain the swamp. Instead, he drowned the country in his grudges. Every tweet, every threat, every tariff is just another echo of the same message. You hurt me, now I'll hurt you. That's not policy, that's pathology. And the longer it continues, the more America looks like a man chasing ghosts of the past instead of building a future.